Happy Sabbath, Shakers! Welcome to the Seasoned Salt class, where faith ain't plain, it's flavorful, and favor ain't fair. It's seasoned. So hold your lids tight. We bout to shake up this week's lesson.
Hello, everyone. It's Toya, and welcome back to my Seasoned Salt lesson study. Today, we're diving into this week's lesson, Living the Law, Lesson 9. We're going to explore how God's law were meant to guide His people, not just in their faith, but in every part of their lives, personal, social, and spiritual. These laws weren't just rules, they were a reflection of His character. So let's break it down. Okay, so now let's get into our memory text, which is from Exodus 20 and verse 22 and 23. And it states from the New King James Version, Then the Lord said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, You have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make anything to be with me, gods of silver or gods of gold. You shall not make for yourselves. Again, memory text from Exodus 20 and verse 22 and 23. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this lesson, right? So, living the law, starting from Sabbath afternoon, and also Sunday's lesson, the code of content. God's purpose behind His law. God desired for His people to be different from everyone else, set apart by their respect for Him and their treatment of one another. These laws weren't just about obedience, they reflected His goodness, justice, and love. It shows us how God is both a loving Father and a judge. One of the key takeaways here is that justice is about more than just punishment, it's about righteousness and mercy. And a key takeaway from Sabbath afternoon is that I saw is that God's law reveals Him, His restraints against evil, and how He feels about it. In it, it says, As the law is holy and just, so is God. He's holy and He's just. And His respect for Him and for each other, and what that does for us while creating space for an abundant life, the law also helps protect us from dangers and from systems that may have been put in place to lower our value. Right? So He is a just God where He likes things of good character, showing of good grace. That's the way He likes to move and operate that I can appreciate. Sunday, with the Code of the Covenant. God's Code of the Covenant was practical. It wasn't just theory, it was real, everyday guidance. It covered everything from how to handle conflict to how to protect the vulnerable. And for example, the laws about Hebrew servants shows God's deep care for people, even in difficult situations. These weren't the cruel, oppressed systems we've seen in history. These were rules that guaranteed dignity, freedom, and respect. And that part about the law, that part is powerful. The thing with the Lord that I can appreciate is that it states in Sunday's lesson, He says, the minds of the people, they were bonded and debased by slavery. And He knew, or what I gathered from that is that He knew that they were at a weakened state. And yet He still wanted to help them, save them, and provide a equal foundation of equality for both sides. So He still wanted to protect them even in their ignorance. And that I can get with. Also in the lesson, it states for the question of the day. Let's see where I can start. Though in most of the world, the evil practice of institutionalized slavery has, for the most part, been abolished. What are ways in which some of the principles of it still exist, and what can we do in our own limited sphere to fight against those principles? And so I think that that type of slavery still exists. It exists in that capital gain. It exists with buying and selling. And yes, we should have goods, but we can barter those goods, or the way they just pile on all of our daily life expenses and then don't make certain provisions for us to be able to obtain them. It's just like, yeah, you keep la 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 going over there about what you're doing, and you could do it distractingly, and that way you won't focus in. So that in there is the bonded and the debased of how the slavery could still exist in the mindset, and we could be unaware of it. But yet he is, and he wanted to create a system that we can apply and then help us gain more knowledge and wisdom to do something different. How these laws apply to us today? Now you might be wondering, how do these ancient laws relate to us today? Well, the principle behind the laws, justice, mercy, and loving our neighbors still stands. Like do unto others as you have them do unto you, right? In a world where systems often oppress, we are called to reflect God's law by doing justice, giving loving mercy, and walking humbly with Him. For me in my daily life, I try all my best to walk humbly with Him, because I know if I give out wrong, to me it instantly comes back. It don't wait 5 minutes. It don't wait to the end of the day. It don't even wait to the end of the week. It comes back like almost immediately. And so with that, you learn to switch and do things, or switch your choices so that it can reflect in a loving, graceful, justice manner. Which is, if you're at the four-way stop sign and you may not be ready to go, you can yield and give it to someone else. Or when you're trying to merge lanes, you can pause and break a little bit and give away for somebody else. And maybe further along the road, somebody will repay that to you. That's what it's about, that giving and receiving, that reciprocation of it all, where it just doesn't have to be gimme, 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 or take, take, take. You want that equal balance so that everybody can have their fair share or get their fair share in an organized way. Because the thing that I have definitely noticed about the Lord, He is clear. He is about clarity. He is not a God of chaos at all. Okay? Now let's quickly cover Monday and Tuesday, which is about moral laws and also God's original plan. Now, in the moral laws, in God's mercy, He taught the judges how to deal with people in various situations regarding property rights, right? And what He did, He came up with a reconciliation law, which is where there were several case studies indicating what to do if a bull attacked a neighbor's bull, or if people stole a domestic animal, or if the animal grazed in a different field. He put certain issues in place that things could be dealt with, and I think could be dealt with the issue of fairness and equality, because he is a just God of love and mercy, and you have to spread that love and mercy amongst the whole group, or amongst the whole people, right? God's law included different issues. There were specific regulations against putting down or humiliating people. God was not about that. He did not want any kind of exploitation. In His mercy, God corrects the sinful tendencies of the human heart and restrains people's natural inclinations. Okay? Society was supposed to be kept safe and evil eliminated, and good interpersonal relationships were supposed to be cultivated. He wanted people, like he said in the beginning, be fruitful and multiply. And when you are being fruitful, it's like, what are your fruits of the Spirit? Which is about having elevated emotions of love, gratitude, peace, joy, and empowerment. If you can empower yourself, you can empower your neighbor, even if they just notice your actions, you know? So he wants to create in us a clean heart because he knows the sins of our flesh lives and dwells in there. He does. And he wants us to be delivered. And he wants us to have redemption. All he wants is just for us to lead in a loving and merciful manner, which is why that's God's original plan, for us to have a desire of his heart, which is why he parted the Red Sea so that he can save his Israelites from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh. And he wanted them to repent and have grace, but they had to wait 400 years for those land. But it was theirs. Somehow he made it theirs, but they had to go through. They had to go through in order to get it. Which means he doesn't mind schooling you and letting you have lessons and letting you learn things. Oh yeah, he's down with that all day, every day. On Tuesday's lesson at the bottom, it tells us the crucial role of the conquest of the promised land is played out by the angel of God. This messenger was Christ, who guided Israel and their territories and protected them. This is what I love, how it also can tie into tarot, or how tarot can tie back to the Bible, and how they both are too. It says he was a pillar of cloud guiding them during the day. And then he was a pillar of fire guiding them at night. If you ever seen that tarot card where it's the Ace of Pentacles and it's coming out the cloud, it's coming from the divine, it's dropping from the heavens, it's coming specifically just for you. It's like if you let him guide you in the day, he can guide that fire in you at night too. And Israel had to pay careful, close attention and listen to him because he had divine authority. You got to be able to hear that still small voice, which means you got to be at a calm and peaceful, gentle state within your own self, and not all rowdy and not all of chaos sometimes. Can I tell you, the defiance of God's will and unbelief in his leadership would complicate your and or their advancement? And who does not want to advance? Everybody has a desire to advance. You just have to do it with that original plan. Okay, so real quick, and I don't want to hold you, we're going to do Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, August the 27th, is about an eye for an eye. And Thursday is about vengeance. And we're talking about the principle of vengeance here, right? We all been there, feeling hurt and wanted to get back at someone who wronged us. But this day's lesson gives us a deeper perspective on how God views vengeance and justice. An eye for an eye, y'all know what that is. It's in 2025. It's about that. I'm gonna get my lick back. That's not how he wants you to lead with things. He wants things. He wants peace at the forefront of all things. Okay. Y'all know about Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus Christ cited texts from the Old Testament, texts that people were surely familiar with, right? So the command not to seek vengeance, Romans 12:19, and Deuteronomy 32:35. In Romans 12:19, Paul reminds us that vengeance belongs to God, not to us. It's natural to want to fight back when you're wrong or when someone did something to you. But this command is a powerful reminder that God will take care of justice in His time. We don't need to take matters into our own hands. This reminds me of a time that I've been hurt and wanted to retaliate. But when I really sat with it and I realized that trying to take vengeance only fuels more anger, it doesn't bring true peace. I'm sure you heard of hurt people, right? We definitely been there. So at the Sermon on the Mount and the Mount of Bethus, God was pointing his hearers back to the original text content and meaning. Jesus was seeking to correct some false interpretations of his retaliation law. The original intention of this law was formulated against any personal revenge. It was to stop blood feuds or retaliation without an investigation first. He wanted the judges to see to things to make sure that they can be handled in decency and in order. In the lesson, it states that JC gave these social laws to Moses. He knew the purpose of the law. Therefore, he could apply it in an objective way according to its original intention. The motive behind it was to bring justice and reconciliation and to restore peace. He's about peace and love and mercy and grace, which falls up under patience. So therefore, no, he's not down with that eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And yeah, he said, turn the other cheek. And of course, justice is important, but only God can deliver it perfectly. While God encourages us to trust Him with vengeance, He also understands our human heart need for justice. In His perfect timing, He will make things right. Justice isn't about punishment, it's about restoring balance and peace. Period. Think about the times when you see justice served. Doesn't it feel right when the victim can have their justice? But when we rush it, it's often a mess and chaos and more confusion on top of that confusion that was created. We have to trust that God's justice will come when it's needed in His divine order. One could argue that in a sense, justice implies a kind of vengeance. The proper application of these laws was, it seemed, an attempt to find the right balance between the ideas of justice and vengeance. And applying that today, we may never experience the kind of injustice that the Israelites did, but we still deal with small daily wrongdoings. The challenge for us is to stop seeking revenge or holding grudges. Stop holding that stuff in your body. Instead, we are called to forgive and let God handle the big stuff. This week, let's all practice forgiveness and trust that God will bring justice where it's needed. For me, reading and studying this lesson and being reminded of His Word helps me to stay in my lane when the enemy comes to try and attack me and send his unworthiness thoughts to me. So, discussion question on Wednesday, it says, how should the realization that one day justice will come help you deal with all the injustice that we have seen in the world? Like, how are you being helped? How are you getting through that, right? And so for me, my answer is, I know that there is a higher power. I know that there is something greater than me. And even just accepting that and realizing that helps me go along my day, my path, my way, helps me let my steps be ordered to where I should be, right? I know that there is a higher power in the sense of, I'm not sure if you've ever been pregnant before, and I have twice. And when I tell you those babies cooked inside my belly and grew and developed and designed, and when I tell you I did not do anything in that process, all I did was eat and or sleep and or eliminate it, and the baby grew and the baby was formed and the baby got toes and the baby got fingers, the baby got a brain. I didn't pick any of that out in the Sears catalog, if you know what I'm talking about, being from the late 1900s. I didn't go to the JCPenney catalog and flip the pages and I want these fingers, I want that little nose, I want that cute little belly button. This was all done inside of me from a higher power, from a higher design, from osmosis, if you will, by the order of events or order of operations. Within that, it let me know that yes, it is something higher than me. Okay? And knowing that it is something higher than me, with that, I can rest on the promises that He got it and He's going to take care of it. So no, I don't have to go with the vengeance. Vengeance never, I never avenge it. Yeah, maybe back in my 20s or my younger days, you might want to, because somebody did this, I'm going to do that, you know. But vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay. I will take it. But leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written. They say in the Bible, He know how many hairs on your head. So which means He already knew before you got here what the plan was going to be and who was going to do what and why they was going to do it. And He, allowed you the power of choice to go choose some things. He mapped out some timelines and some paths and some ways that you can go. And He said, on Tuesday, let's see what the choice is going to be. So that's how you know it's something higher. Vengeance belongs to God. When we let go of our need to repay evil with evil, we free ourselves from bitterness. Bitterness lives in that body. I'm telling you, let's make a conscious effort today to forgive and leave room for God's justice. I love to hear how this lesson speaks to you. Be sure to drop me a comment below. So let's go ahead and wrap this lesson up with our final thoughts, right? Number one, we must be objective and fair based upon the principles of God, right? So, how can we be perfect as God Himself? It says, Father in heaven is perfect. How can we be perfect as God Himself? Unselfish love is the overarching characteristic of God. He teaches His followers how to love their enemies and to pray for those who persecute them. True perfection is love, to be forgiving, to be merciful. You can find more on this in Luke 6:36. Even to those who do not deserve it. This principle and the actions it leads to, is what it means to reflect God's character. That's what He means when He wants us to be perfect. He wants to create in us a clean heart, to renew our mind and our spirit. God's justice and love. Ellen G. White in The Great Controversy reminds us that God allows pain and suffering to prepare our souls for peace. And when I tell y'all, this past week I have had some worrying and some doubt and some fated actions to take place. And I had to tell myself that yes, this one action took place and it must have been needed because this is the way He moved. And if He moved this way on this day, you have to rest on the promises, knowing that He can move that way again on another day. Same for you. But we have to rest and trust and have faith in His divine timing. It's a hard truth to swallow, but in the midst of conflict, God is still there. working for our ultimate good. And I believe it and I trust it. This has been heavy for me because, like many of you, I face struggles, but I have to remember that just because I don't understand why this is taking place does not mean God is absent, and it does not mean it's not happening for me as opposed to me. Understanding God's grace and justice, we can read up in Romans 6:14, where Paul says, "You are not under the law, but under grace." This doesn't mean that the law is irrelevant, but that grace allows us to fulfill the law through the power of God's Spirit. We no longer live by the letter of the law, but by the heart of it, which means you lead with it. You follow it just because. You do it because you want to. Those things that you like and desire, are they helping you or are they hurting you, right? But when I think about grace, I'm reminded that no matter how hard I try, I'm never going to be perfect, but I am going to lead with love. I am going to have respect, and God's grace is sufficient for me. It gives me the strength to live His law in a way that pleases Him. And when I tell you I want the advancements that the Lord has for me, I shall walk by His side. I shall let Him order my steps, and I will let Him lead my heart, because I know the difference between justice and vengeance are not the same. Justice seeks balance and righteousness. Vengeance seeks to repay and often harm others in the process. My goal, or our goal, should be to seek justice in our lives, in our hearts, acting with mercy and love, not revenge, not my lick back, not my get back, not my plot on you. Mm-mm. When I was wrong, our first impulse might be to fight back. When you are wrong or when you feel wrong, your first impulse might be to fight back. Mm-mm. But I've learned that true justice comes from trusting God and doing what's right, not what feels satisfying at that moment, right then and right there. Mm-mm. When I tell you today's further thought calls us to remember that God's justice is not just about punishing sin, but about making all things right. Making it, as the song say, it is well in my soul. When we feel like we've been wrong, we can trust that God is working all things together for your good. Point blank and the period. So let's meditate and have a moment of silence for a moment for this upcoming week. And so we can see how we can let go of the desire for vengeance and seek God's justice instead. Because His grace and mercy is good and it's everlasting. So, yes, we take a moment to pause and slow down and to reflect, because we know that He got us. I appreciate you for coming to the Sabbath School lesson with me this week. We did lesson 9, which is living the law. And I love to hear your thoughts and your feedback and your comments or your experiences where you may have had injustice but chose to just be still and rest on His promises. God's mercy and justice is our own life. Please like, share, and comment any little thing you got about this lesson. Thanks so much for coming. And I'll see you next week.
Shakers, if this study class blessed you, hit like, subscribe, come back, and let's keep seasoning together. Join us as we shake up and down some flavor into next week's lesson.
As always, see you at 9:15 a.m. Shaker,